Dungeons and Dragons is a very fun and interesting thing. The whole concept is to sit down with friends or acquaintances and spin a story together in a make-believe world where really there are no boundaries. I still remember when I first got into D&D. It was during Christmas, maybe 7 years ago. Me and a large group of my friends heard that one of the guys had actually played D&D with his older brother and some of his friends. He had only played a handful of times over the span of 2 months or so, but when we heard that he had actually played D&D, we all immediately insisted on all of us playing. So when I got back home, I told my mom that in about an hour, my friend and his dad are bringing a large table. We're gonna bring that up to the attic, and I'm gonna need to borrow some chairs, and we're going to order pizza, and we're gonna play out there tonight. She was understandably confused and asked what computer game we were all gonna go play. I tried to explain to her how D&D worked, but that just made her more confused. It didn't help that I didn't really know how D&D worked in the first place, either. So anyway, I stole around 5 of the dining room chairs, and we eventually, after a long battle with narrow stairs, brought and placed the table in the attic. The ceilings were low, there wasn't a lot of room to begin with, and I took my TV and I kind of placed it on top of the table, basically using up all the table space. Around 2 hours after we had convinced our buddy to be the DM for us, in which he had no proper experience in, we were now up in my mother's small attic with barely enough room to walk in. We had filled it with 5 dining room chairs, 1 lounge chair so deep you couldn't really see the top of the table, and then a corner of the bed. The table itself was completely covered by a television and a small laptop, and there was only this 1 small window in the room. All in all, we were 7 players and 1 dungeon master, 3 extra guys who just came to hang out and watch. And only 1 person had experience with the game, and the rest had absolutely no idea how to play. So we made characters following the steps from the player's manual, while the DM tried to read Curse of Strahd to prepare a little bit, while explaining what charisma and dexterity is and why it is important to know what your AC is, and of course, what the hell proficiency was. It was pure chaos. It was pretty horrible, actually. Everyone spoke over each other. No one properly listened to the DM because we were all just making jokes and were overwhelmed by the sheer amount of rules that there are to this weird game. But we played nonetheless. We played for 3 days, actually. Since we did not know the rules, or didn't even know how the game was structured, at one point we ignored a plot hook, which was supposed to lead to the whole session's playtime, forcing our poor DM to read the book as we played during that session. That was my first contact with D&D. And looking back, I did not learn anything at all about D&D during those 3 sessions. You could barely argue that what we did was D&D, but we had a blast. I did, anyway. We were all in our early 20s back then, but during Christmas and New Year's Eve, when everyone else our age spent their days and nights partying and drinking, just being young and dumb, me and my friends spent our time in a tiny attic filled with the stench of pizza and sweat, drinking Danish chocolate milk, which I insisted they had to try, and just rolling dice on top of a TV. It was great. D&D doesn't have to be a well thought out campaign with people that are good at math or good at improvising. You don't have to be good at accents or voices or explaining in great detail how the dungeon is dark and humid. No. D&D can just be you and your friends goofing around in a tiny room, making silly noises and stupid jokes as you try and stumble and babble your way through some story with these make-believe characters that you've made. It was the year after that I had found out what a one-shot was, and I got the great idea to make my own. At this point, 2 of my friends were dungeon masters, so why shouldn't I be able to be one too? I had only played D&D maybe 5 times at that point, so this was an insane idea. I had never read a module. I barely knew the basic rules, and still thought, it can't really be that hard to come up with a one-shot, can it? So, I asked some of my friends and if they would like to play in it. And 4 of them said yes. So I started writing. I came up with a town. Then I decided on a mystery setting, investigation and stuff like that. Then I made a villain. But then I thought, it might be too easy to figure out who the villain is. So I made 3 routes of clues. One of them is gonna be a red herring, and then I added another part to this adventure, and another, and another, and another. Suffice it to say, what I made was not a one-shot. A one-shot does not take around 24 hours of in-game time and play to finish. I thought I did pretty good though. The guys made their characters, and you could feel which ones took it seriously, and which ones just wanted to start playing quickly. The mysteries were challenging to figure out, but not impossible. But again, looking back on it, I think I fell into just about every beginner DM pitfall that there is. I railroaded. I locked important information behind skill checks. I refused a lot of cool ideas because the characters were not supposed to figure stuff out yet. The combat was erratic and they took just so long, and I had overpowered enemies, and god, it was just an absolute mess. Lately, D&D has almost felt like a burden to me. Or a wall. Or a hindrance. I've been a DM for my own homebrew campaign, which I built off of that one shot that I made. And we've played for about 2 or 3 years now. Can't really remember. Jumping from being a new player to homebrewing a one shot to building on top of that homebrewing a campaign with no real idea for an ending is absurdly fun. But it can also become equally difficult. To this day, I still have not ever used a module. Well, I did try once, but I felt that it hindered my creativity. It put me in a box. It felt wrong. Homebrewing is freeing. You decide what is canon and what is not. You decide if an NPC dies or not. There are no edges you can't explore. But you have no safety net. Without you actively creating and morphing everything, there is no session, there is no game. Then neither you nor your players will have fun. If you experience burnout, you can't just lean onto the wall that is a module and look up what happens next. You can't just read where the super secret important world saving item is and what it does. You can either push through the burnout, or you can take a break from playing, putting the game on hold. And that's what I did. My players have known me since we were kids. We understand and respect each other. And I feel truly lucky to have friends like them as my players. And honestly, I don't even know why I'm making this video. There wasn't supposed to be any overarching purpose or lesson to be learned. I guess I just kind of wanted to try and make something again, to create something. We are slowly getting back into playing D&D. We want to finish the campaign we started together, and after that, the same friend who introduced us to D&D all those years ago, he said, you know, we never got close to finishing the Curse of Strahd thing that we did. Why don't we restart that? We'll let you be a player again. And then the other experienced DM player said, or if we can't play that, one of us can just run something else. After all, you just have to ask. And I think that is the real way to play D&D. Play with the people you trust and respect. Enjoy the game your DM brings to your table, and in turn, when that campaign is done, why not try being the DM yourself? I would encourage anyone to try it, at least once. I mean, yeah, it can be difficult, but it's so enjoyable and rewarding too. And just remember, it's a process like any other thing. You didn't know how to ride a bike the second you tried it, did you? So maybe there is a point to this video. If your dungeon master is tired and burned out, try taking turns. Let's all try and enjoy this wonderful game where you play in a make-believe world with made-up characters, make silly noises and stupid jokes, and just cherish the time that we have with our friends.